Welcome to Werribee Zoo!
Sweaty the car.
So, hi guys! I am here right now in Werribee Zoo! So, and we're gonna do the full tour of this zoo. So, see you guys later. Bye-bye! So, ayan guys, ang aming sasakyan mamaya. So, we'll see.
Where's it to? The right.
The right. Zebra World.
Now, where we go? Here, and we go to. What do we say? Go to the left.
Yeah.
This way.
Safari Station. No, over there. Here. Welcome to Safari Station.
Hello, yellow stickers, 12 o'clock.
Yes.
Select Safari.
Yes.
I'm Aide, I'll be your guide. How are you?
Good, thank you.
You've got 10 minutes to finish your pie, so we won't hurry you.
Thank you very much.
Hi folks, how are you? I'm very well. Just in case you have your eyes. So, Arabian camels or dromedaries. You guys are welcome to stand now if you want to. Now this side stay seated, this side can stand up, we can all sit. Now, these animals are native to Northern Africa, the Arabian Peninsula. We imported them into Australia to help us explore the inland. Inland Australia's desert, not suitable for men on foot or men on horseback. So we brought camels into the country as the ideal animal for desert travel. First camel arrived in South Australia in 1866, and between then and 1910 we brought about 11,000 camels into the country. Some of those escaped, some were just let go when they'd done their job. We've got a feral population now that's approaching 2.5 million animals. They are doing a huge amount of environmental damage. They're changing the nature of the country. But they played a really important role in our European history. This is Saffron. She's a female. We have Sahara, Lucy over the back, and then big male with looking through the fence. If we see Saffron move, you'll notice that as she puts her feet on the ground, they spread out. They become bigger so they don't sink into the soft sand. She has big long eyelashes. It's hard work getting down. Big eyelashes. She can close her ears and her nostrils with muscles to stop the desert dust from getting in. The humps on their backs are full of fat, not water, like many people think. There's about 35 kilos of fat in there, a bit like me. Living on that 35 kilos, she can go maybe 28 days without eating anything. If she has a little bit of vegetation, she can do 10, perhaps 12 days without needing to drink water. So beautifully adapted to life in the desert. If she's had a dry period and she hasn't had water for a long time, when she drinks, she'll take 240 litres at a time. Now, if you multiply 240 litres by 2.5 million camels, that's an awful lot of water that our native animals aren't getting in those desert conditions. So they are a bit of a nuisance, but we wouldn't be the country we are without the camels. So we're happy to have them here at the zoo. Now, we've got some antelope in here as well. These are scimitar horned oryx, and they're from the Sahara Desert in northern Africa. They were declared extinct in the wild in the year 2000. There were no more wild oryx. But there were good numbers in private collections, especially in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi sheikhs had gathered oryx, taken them back to Belinda, sitting there, and I couldn't resist. She is my most and least favourite animal here at Werribee Zoo. My most favourite animal because she is absolutely stunningly beautiful. My least favourite animal because every morning when I come to work, I get a coffee and I come down to talk to Belinda, and not once has she acknowledged that I exist. She's a typical cat. She'll do what she wants to do, and it's my life's aim to get Belinda to look up when I call her name. Hey, Belinda. Yep. She's a cheetah. She's our only cheetah. That's not hard for her. If she was living in the wild, she would be living by herself. Cheetahs are solitary animals. Unlike lions that live in groups, cheetahs live by themselves. And she's displaying typical cheetah behaviour. She's sitting in an area where she can look out over her domain, see if there's anything out there she might like to hunt, and checking that there are no predators before she hunts. She's only a small cat. Cheetahs, she weighs 44 kilos, about the size of a big, fat golden retriever or Labrador. All of the other predators will steal her kill. So lions, wild dogs, hyena, leopards will all steal her kill. So before she hunts, she makes sure there are no other predators. Then when she does make a kill, she'll drag it off quickly into long grass where she can hide it from the other predators. So she's doing that now. She's looking out here. We're her big screen TV, I guess. And especially when we have baby antelope, she finds it very interesting out here. There's a moat there. She can't get out, but she wonders about what it would be like if she could. She still hunts, and if a duck or a Cape Barren goose is silly enough to land in there, Belinda will have it in a minute. And rabbits too, she's often seen with a rabbit. She has a genetic disorder, which means we won't breed with her. She has a thing called pancreatic exocrine deficiency, which means she can't digest meat or bones or fur or feathers. So she has to have medication with every meal. When she hunts, it makes it difficult because she's eating more food. This is two of our beautiful hippos. Brindabella showing us her best side. She's 32 years old, born here at the zoo, and behind her is her daughter Pansy. Pansy's 12, also born here at Werribee Zoo. Further down the river we have 3 more girls, Primrose and her daughters Lotus and Tulip. All our hippos are female. These 2 will be moving soon, end of the year, to Monarto Zoo in South Australia to start a breeding program there. And we'll be bringing, hopefully, a young male from Dubbo Zoo to join our other girls and start a breeding program here again. Because it's a coolish day but nice sunshine, the girls will sleep on the beach for most of the day. If it was much warmer than this, they'd be in the water. If it was colder than this, they'd be in the water. But they will come out during the day if it's a little bit warm in the sun. They spend most of their time in water. It's their safe place. It protects them from the sun, keeps them cool in the hot weather. The water helps to support the weight of their bodies. Brindabella's about 1,800 kilos, Pansy about 1,300. A big male can weigh as much as 3,000 kilos, so they are big animals. Now the remarkable thing for me about hippos, who spend all day in the water, hippos can't swim. They have no buoyancy, they don't float. If they're in water that's deeper than they are, they just sink to the bottom. But they can hold their breath for 6, 8, 10 minutes, and they can run along the bottom at about 8 kilometres an hour, and that's how they move around in deep water. They just walk or run along the bottom. If they're in reasonably deep water, they'll jump off the bottom, grab a breath of air, dive back down and keep running. Now this is where you can Google. If you don't believe me, Google it. The first page that comes up is the National Geographic page, which says they're expert swimmers. They're not. They can't swim. What happens when they jump off the bottom, grab that breath of air and dive back down? They're paddling their legs. So they say, because they're doing this in the water, they're swimming. I say, if I jump off the air and flap my arms, am I flying? No, I'm not, because I can't stay up there, neither can they. It doesn't matter how much they paddle those little legs, they're going to end up on the bottom, and that's not swimming. That's drowning.
No, look at the house. Yeah,
So over on the right-hand side of the bus, we've got a little group of antelope. They're behaving a bit abnormally at the moment. Half of the herd is over here, the other half is here. All females, the little male in the middle here with the brown and white coat and the long spiral horns. Now the bus driver should not split the herd, I think that's Roger. So the rest of the girls will come over, and this is how Artie, the male, likes them. He wants them all bunched up nice and tight like this, and he runs himself ragged trying to keep them in a big bunch. That way he can better protect them from predators. He can make sure the other boys don't come and steal his girls. What Artie doesn't know is we don't have any predators and there are no other boys. But it's instinctive that for him, he needs to do it. And I told you before, we keep our male and female separate with antelope. We can't do that with the Indian antelope. The girls need a male to keep them calm. If there's no boy, they stress and worry. They think they're going to be eaten by a leopard because it's his job to protect them. So no boy means they go to bed every night thinking they're going to get eaten. So they stress, they'll lose condition, they'll starve themselves to a point where they become ill. So Archie has had a vasectomy. He still behaves like a perfectly entire male antelope, but he won't make any babies. Most of the breeding we do here is for other zoos, but it doesn't matter how rare or endangered an animal is. There is no point in breeding it if you don't have habitat for it. And that's habitat in the wild or here in the zoo. And we have as many of these beautiful little antelope as we can manage with the space we have available for them. They're native to northern India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh. They were hunted and their numbers were dwindling very quickly, but they're protected now, living in national parks and reserves and doing quite well. That was Artie just stamping his feet, letting the girls know that they were naughty for running off.
Really?
He's a very handsome young fellow. They're called Blackbuck because of that dark brown, almost black coat. We don't see the bachelor herd, but if you could see them, you would see that they are very much darker than he is. And the most dominant one has the darkest coat, and he's almost jet black. They'll have fights amongst themselves, and another younger one will move in and become the dominant buck. His coat will darken because he produces more testosterone. The old fellow will lose some testosterone because he walks around with his head down going, oh, I'm not the boss anymore, and his coat will fade. So we can always tell which one's the dominant one in the herd, so can they by the depth and colour of their coat. And it is most unusual to see him away from the girls. He doesn't do it very often. But he's a handsome man.
He's just pleasing me.
Yeah, he knows he's a handsome man too. Normally he struts around with his chin up in the air and his tail curved up over his back, which is his dominance display. He's very relaxed today. As we head through these gates, American people refer to them as buffalo. They're not buffalo, they're bison, one of two species found in the world. The other one, the European bison, is a little bit smaller than these. Again, this is our breeding herd. These are all females. The girls weigh around about 650 kilos each. We do have two boys, Benji and Lakota, very much bigger than the girls at about 1,300 kilos. They're very grumpy and they don't like vehicles at all. So we don't have them out here where we're going to aggravate them by driving the buses around. They're too big to make them angry on purpose. When Europeans first arrived in North America at the very early 1600s, these were the most numerous animal on Earth. The estimated population was somewhere around 50 million bison. By 1870, there were fewer than 700 of them left. And that's because the white settlers tried deliberately to make the animals extinct. And it makes me sick just to say that. But they were having trouble with the indigenous American people, the people they called the Plains Indians, who lived on the beautiful grasslands that cover great tracts of what's now North America and Canada. The settlers wanted that land for farming. The Indians didn't want to move off and give it to them. So there was fighting, and the Indians were very good at fighting. They relied heavily on the bison. They followed the migrating herds, they ate them. They used their skins to make clothing and shelter. They used bones and sinews for weapons and tools. They worshipped them as sacred animals. The white bison, the tatonka, was the godhead of many of those Plains Indian tribes. And so, sorry, got distracted by the bird. The white settlers thought if we get rid of the bison, breeding programs like this one, the bison numbers have recovered and we now have about 30,000 of them. They're a wonderful conservation success story, and they've actually been here on this property longer than we've been a zoo. This used to be holding grounds for excess animals from Melbourne Zoo, and people would come with their picnic blankets and sit along the river and look through the fences at all the animals and have a picnic. And someone had the bright idea of charging money, and so that's what happened. We became a zoo in '82, but the bison were here long before that. Not these ones are young, but we have had bison on property for a long time. All right, let's keep moving. stand out in all weathers, and they can cop just about anything but men with guns. And it's the ultimate arrogance of the human animal that any animal that we don't have a use for has no use. Because the local people couldn't use these animals to work their farms, they couldn't ride them, they couldn't train them to do the ploughing. The only thing they were good for was food, so they shot them and ate them. There was a German fellow who was fascinated by them. He had his own private menagerie with 600 horses in it. But the males are a bit intractable, hard to keep in captivity, so he killed all the males and he just had 600 females. Of course, 20 years down the track when he needed babies, there were no males. So he greatly contributed to the almost demise of these magic little horses. Luckily, we've saved them, and again, a wonderful conservation success story. Oh, grab a seat, we'll get away from this. Remember I showed you an oryx horn earlier? There's the guy who donated it to us. We've got our beautiful southern white rhinos over here. We have 6 at Werribee Zoo. 3 of them living down here on the savannah, 3 living up on the ridge behind us there. We have 2 females and a male in our little group here. In the middle with the long straight horn is Aide. Aide is 42 years old. She's a very old rhino. In front of her, with the curved horn, is her granddaughter, Capenzi. Capenzi's 12 and was born here at Werribee Zoo, hand raised by the keepers. And then over the back, out by himself, as he often is Piparu, our male. And I hope I've got those 2 right. Difficult to tell from this angle. This other white rhino is obviously not coloured white. The white part of their name is a corruption of an Afrikaans word, fate, which means wide, and it describes their mouth, which is very wide and flat. In Afrikaans, they call them the wide-mouthed rhino. The other African rhino is the black rhino, not because he's black, but because he's not white, not wide. He has a narrow top lip that he uses like a finger to pull leaves from shrubs and bushes. So he's a browser, these guys are grazing. Once he's sitting down for an afternoon nap. Or is it that's already extinct? Sorry? No, there's no more northern white rhinos. Well, there's 2 northern white rhinos. These are southern white rhinos.
They were untamed.
So we'll just do a very quick stop here. This is our African savannah. We're going to head on down there shortly and say hello to our larger African grazing crowd. Our savannah is part of the Werribee River floodplain. It's about 80 acres in area, about 1.5 Melbourne zoos, if you've been to Melbourne Zoo. It's a really great grazing place for our larger African animals. It gives them a much more natural habitat with this much area to move around. And animals that have a little bit of choice about how they spend their day, have some control over their own destinies, and that makes for happy, healthy animals. It's also a very important place for the local Aboriginal people. We're on Kulin country here. On this side of the river it's the Wadawurrung. The 4 clans of the Kulin Nation met right here to trade, perform their ceremonies and their rituals, and it remains a very special place for the Aboriginal people today. There are 2 trees down here that are part of secret women's business. As a man, I'm not to know what those trees are or what they're for, but we're assured by the Wadawurrung that while we're here, the trees will keep all the ladies on board safe. Guys, we have to fend for ourselves just a little bit. If one of the rhinos should charge at the bus, stand behind a lady, you'll be fine. Let's go down and say hello. I'm just watching the ostrich here. Because we don't have female ostrich, the boys attach themselves to the keepers and they'll often do their mating dance for one of the keepers. So I'm hoping that he's going to do that for us. You can see him standing up tall there because he's a bit excited. He's 2.4 metres tall. He weighs 140 kilos. Very big bird. But no, he's not going to do his dance for us. All right, let's go and see what we... So rhino horns are made from a protein called keratin. It's the very same thing that makes your fingernails your toenails. You could get just as much medical assistance from eating your toenail clippings as you could from eating rhino. But it's been happening for 3,000 years. It's not going to stop because Aide at Werribee Zoo says it should stop. So again, education is the key. Now you'll notice the different shape of the horns. The two young ones have a curved horn. Old Marquet has a straight horn. The horns are mostly ornamental. Mostly there to attract the opposite sex. Young girls wear makeup to attract boys. I've got no idea what young boys do to attract girls. It's too long ago that I was one of those. But rhinos shape the horn. So the young ones are constantly rubbing their horns on the ground, on rocks, on logs, tree trunks to get that lovely curved shape. Marquet's old grandma, she doesn't care about her hair or makeup. She just gets up in the morning and goes about her day. And so her horn is growing long and straight. And all the old girls have long, straight horns. Marquet's got a little notch in the bottom of her horn, which is kind of funny. Wherever these little wire fences are, Marquet figures that the food on the other side of the fence has got to taste better. So she's constantly trying to get her head through and rubbing her horn on that bottom wire. And that's why she's got that beautiful little notch. Now, they can't see us from where they are. Their eyesight is poor, 30 metres, 40 metres is their maximum. But they've got acute hearing and acute sense of smell, and you'll see their ears are constantly moving. They're listening to us, they're listening to the truck, they're listening to each other, and that's how they stay in touch. And these big piles of what scientists refer to as poo are a very important part of their communication tools. They deposit their droppings in the same place every day. We call those places middens, rhino middens, and they use them for communication. They'll use the same midden for maybe a month and then they'll start a new one somewhere else. But a young rhino will get chased out of the territory by his dad when he's about 4 years old. Dad doesn't want any competition for the girls, so chases the young fellow away. And he'll move into a new territory and quite easily find the midden. By smell, he can tell what rhinos are there, when they were there, if they're male or female. He can even tell if they're female, whether they might be in the mood for male company. So I like to say that rhinos use their middens like young people use Facebook to tell everybody where they are, what sort of mood they're in, what they had for breakfast. That's not the funniest joke. So we've got our three newest baby zebras down here in the little hole. The little one in the middle is called Flo. She's just over 3 weeks old now. On the right hand side is Zuka. She's about 5 months old. And on the left here, Mamelo. He and Zuka were born just 3 days apart. Mamelo's an unusual little fellow in that he's a bit of a redhead. All zebras are born with some ginger fur. Usually they lose it after about a month, but Mamelo's hung on to his. So he has a lovely ginger mane, and his rump, his tail, his feet and his muzzle have all maintained that ginger colour. So he's probably going to be a redhead for the rest of his days, which makes him a little unusual. These are plains zebra or virtual zebra, the most common of the 3 species down here. In the north there's the Werribee zebra, critically endangered. In the south, the Cape or mountain zebra, also critically endangered. These guys are doing pretty well. If you look at them, you'll see that the stripes are different on each one. What are you doing?
Why they're critically endangered species?
Because people farm and take the habitat. They want, if you're a farmer and you don't have much money, you want all the water and all the grass for your goats, not for the zebras. So habitat loss is the main reason. These guys are doing well because they share their habitat with a fly called a tsetse fly, which is much like our march fly. It's got a nasty bite, but it carries a disease called sleeping sickness. The zebras are immune to it, but people, horses, cattle are not immune. So wherever there's tsetse fly, there's not much farming, and because there's not much farming, there's good habitat for our zebras. So they're doing quite well. Grab a seat, folks. I'll get out of the way so the others can see the zebras. I'll get out of your way.
Lady must drive.